Welcome, wanderers of trembling feelings and keepers of moments that time refuses to blur. Welcome again to the home where hearts speak in low tones and secrets learn to breathe. You are inside whispers of Turkish stars. There are connections that resist explanation, threads that knot themselves in noisy rooms until two people discover a sanctuary nobody else can see. You remember that sensation, don't you? When a glance lasts longer than the script allows, when a smile carries a meaning too delicate for words, when a breath lands like an heirloom being passed hand to hand. Tonight, lean closer with us as we open a window onto the subtle signals, the stolen looks, and that quiet voltage always alive between Cenk and Mahassine Marabet. We are not here for shallow chatter, we are diving into the anatomy of a chemistry that has held millions spellbound. Before we enter those warm corridors of nuance, keep our circle glowing, subscribe to Whispers of Turkish Stars so no whisper escapes you, tap the bell to be first to catch the shades in a sigh, and if the way we peel back starlight to find the heartbeat beneath it moves you, leave a like. For those who want the best seat in our velvet theater and wish to support our journeys deeper into feeling, the subscribe button is your key. Settle in, because we are about to explore what language tiptoes around but cannot cage. Picture them on set under honeyed lights, patient cameras crouched like friendly cats, waiting for magic they know will arrive. A story lifts its head before us, every beat seems to push them, gently but persistently, closer than the scene requires. Long before dialogue says what hearts already learned, the eyes run ahead. Watch the way Cenk lets his gaze rest on Mahassine as if placing a small treasure somewhere safe, an extra heartbeat beyond the director's plan, then looks away carrying a private warmth only he can feel. Notice how Mahassine meets him without flinching, holding that gaze just a breath longer than any rehearsal would demand, as if sharing a dare only the two of them understand, and then floats back into the now as if nothing has happened. These aren't fireworks that vanish in smoke. They are candle flames, fierce, determined, stubborn against any draft of ordinary. Gestures tell truths the mouth is too cautious to shape. There is the tender sweep of a stray lock from her temple, not performed for a lens but born of care. There is the playful fussing over a lapel, a pretext that is barely a pretext at all. There's the quick, automatic touch that steadies a misstep before a hand can think twice. Reflexes are honest. When kindness leaps ahead of thought, a story already exists beneath the skin, written in the nerves where self-protection usually lives. In public, words obey rules and keep their coats buttoned. But listen to tone, to commas that hesitate, to pauses that cradle something fragile. When Cenk praises Mahassine's discipline, it is not the cold nod of a colleague, it carries gratitude, as if he knows how her strength holds a long day together. And when Mahassine admires his patience, it doesn't float like a generic label, it lands like a shared memory, his patience with a joke she can't stop laughing at, his patience with the perfectionism that makes a scene sing, his patience with a spark that complicates goodbyes when the night asks them to let go early. They guard themselves with wit, with teasing that ricochets and glitters, with little feints that say everything by saying something else. Jokes are curtains, and you know what happens behind good curtains. Then life sprinkles coincidences like soft feathers until suddenly it all has weight. They duck into the same narrow cafe when a sudden rain pins the city in silver, nobody told them where to run, yet they choose the same door. A business trip writes them onto the same flight, they slide through the airport within minutes of each other, heads tucked, steps matching in a rhythm that listens to the same drum. A late rehearsal stretches toward twilight, and the two of them share an umbrella in a drizzle that probably belongs in a love song, pretending it's only practical while the rest of us swear we can hear a melody from nowhere. Fate likes to dress up as bad timing, we've learned not to be fooled. Vulnerability is where truth learns to breathe. Hand someone the tender parts of your story and a bridge appears between you. We've heard Mahassine speak of fear with a candor that almost trembles, and the way Cenk listens is not idle, it's protective, the kind of attention that stands guard until the moment passes. We've heard Cenk admit the pressure that follows success like an uninvited shadow, and Mahassine's answer is never a hollow comfort. She gives perspective and light, and a precision that only someone who has taken notes on your soul can offer. These exchanges do not shout. They hum, and the note hangs in the air longer than the ear expects. Then there are details that can't be staged because they require memory that only care tends to. He orders her coffee before she asks, nailing the roast and the tiny shift in sweetness she prefers on anxious days. She later notices a small cut on his knuckle and asks about it when the red lights are sleeping, because she remembers he wasn't on set the day before. He laughs at a throwaway reference to a joke from months earlier, and she tips her face to hide a smile that tells on them both. These aren't grand gestures, they are the invisible thread that stitches a private pocket into a public jacket, a language only they are fluent in. Watching them is dizzying because it feels like truth daring to show its face. Fans who have traveled with Cenk and Mahassine Marabet from first scenes to red carpets understand how to read a glance the way sailors read winds. You recognize that look he gets when she makes him laugh too hard, the one with a boyish spark that refuses to grow up. You notice the way her shoulders let go of tension when he walks into a room, like a dancer rediscovering her balance endpoint. You remember the story about a rehearsal that turned into helpless laughter at some unholy hour, and how the way they told it made the point that the night mattered less for the joke and more for who stood beside them while the ceiling shook with laughter. Instinct is fallible, but it rarely fabricates warmth out of thin air. Then listen to the words that slip off the edges. When Mahassine says, "Only you would understand this," she opens a door onto a territory that doesn't have a map. When Cenk answers, "I didn't understand that about you," it sounds like someone has been paying attention longer than we realized. Compliments can disguise themselves as small talk, but often they are confessions disguised as diplomacy, grief-proof ways of saying "I see you" without shaking the ground beneath your feet. They speak of professionalism and respect, yes, but there's a softness hiding in their vowels, a private music heard best up close. Notice how time misbehaves around them. Minutes elongate when they stand too near. An interview that should be a quick 5 turns into a gentle 15 because every answer becomes a duet, a call and response where no one steps on the other's toes. They lead and yield with instinctive grace, clearing little patches of space for each other's thoughts. They are fluent in each other's timing, and fluency is learned, not assigned. Whether they're rehearsing a tender scene or debating a trivial change of schedule, the rhythm holds. People who share timing don't trip, they sway. Imagine the day a small crisis simmers on set, nothing dramatic, just a hitch that threatens to steal an hour. One of them falters, just for a breath, and before a single command is barked, the other arrives. The fix is practical, of course it is, but the reflex is protective. Their eyes meet for a second that feels wider than the distance between them, gratitude arching like a bridge, then the world snaps back into focus. But you saw it, didn't you? The promise tucked inside the efficiency, the unspoken "we've got this" underscored in ink invisible to everyone except the two who signed it. Proximity is a dangerous match for a heart that already knows where it wants to burn, and fate keeps sketching them into the same frame. They drift toward the same corner at an after-party as if pulled by a quiet rope. They step off a panel and walk in sync without realizing it until a camera reminds them that rhythm like this is not common. They appear in colors that answer each other, like a whispered palette agreed upon in a dream, and you dismiss it until it happens again, and again, and again. Coincidence wears many faces, but repetition asks to be called by a truer name. All the while, they dance a careful circle around definitions. They are friends, professionals, co-architects of scenes that make audiences forget to blink. And yet the air between them shivers as if the music is always about to call them to the floor. Perhaps they have sworn to protect whatever this is by refusing to name it. Perhaps naming it would make it heavier than it needs to be right now. Or perhaps they are still finding it, and discovery tastes sweeter when nobody is asking for labels. We watch because we recognize the threshold, that trembling point where a look becomes a language and the smallest kindness can tilt a life. We cheer them in whispers because the world is noisy and miracles prefer quiet. So tonight we sift the signs with tender hands, the glances that return like tides, the touches that pretend to be accidents, the compliments that mask confession, the friends who can't stop smiling because their eyes are terrible liars, the coincidences that multiply until they resemble design, the private admissions that turn into trust, the gentle catalog of details only the devoted notice, and the perfectly reasonable reasons to keep a secret safe while something delicate grows muscles. Put these fragments together and a picture appears, not a billboard, but a painting lit from within, a love that tests its jokes in the wings before taking the stage. If you've watched Cenk and Mahassine as closely as we have, you know the story does not clock out when the stage lights nap. It persists in the space between interviews and the quiet walk to a waiting car. It lingers in the echo of laughter and in the echo of touch. It follows them to the next project, onto the next carpet flashing with cameras, into the next unremarkable afternoon when a message blinks onto a phone and rewrites the hours. And if we are wrong, if this is simply friendship perfected by time and trust, then what a friendship to witness, what a standard for the rest of us to carry. Our hearts, stubborn and hopeful, suspect there is more. Maybe the next glance will stop pretending to be harmless. Maybe the next goodbye will forget to end on time. Maybe the next small crisis will once again reveal how their first instinct is to find each other in the tangle of noise, and maybe, just maybe, the curtain will shift enough for the music to be heard without translation. Until then, we will be here, listening for the softest evidence, because that is where the truth is brave enough to step out. If this journey through the almosts and nearly's touched something tender in you, leave a like, subscribe to Whispers of Turkish Stars, and support us so we can keep tracing the shimmer between lines and the warmth within the frame. Until our next revelation, remember that sometimes the story told by silence is the truest one of all, and that courage often begins as a glance that refuses to look away. Good night from Whispers of Turkish Stars, where feelings find a voice and secrets are treated like priceless glass, where we promise to keep listening to the quiet between Cenk and Mahassine Marabet, and to return whenever the light catches them just so, telling us that the next chapter is already on its way. And if you find yourself wondering tomorrow whether you only imagined the warmth we described tonight, come back and replay the moments. The umbrella that became a small shelter, the coffee that arrived before words, the shared laughter that bent time into a circle, the crisis that became a vow, the colors that spoke to each other, the walk that moved like a song, the glance that stayed, the silence that answered, the rhythm that held, the hush that forgave, the promise that waited, the trust that grew, the tenderness that returned, the spark that insisted, the grace that guided, the patience that learned, the care that remembered, the courage that listened, the music that hovered, the story that continued, the feeling that remained.